today we are going to talk about congruent segments. Congruent means equal, and so when you have two items that are the same, they're equal in length, right? Congruent means equal. If we're talking about a line segment, you know it's got two endpoints. I'm going to go ahead and call those endpoints A and C. For two segments to be congruent, they have to have something called a midpoint. I'm going to call that midpoint B. Now, sometimes you will get directions that say a midpoint exists. Other times you'll have a drawing that has these tick marks of congruence on there for you. These show you that B is a midpoint because AB has to be equal to BC for that to be a midpoint. Okay, so congruent segments, you must have proof. So you either must know that B is a midpoint or that AB is equal to BC. And really that's the main idea of congruent segments, that AB, the length of AB, is equal to the length of BC. Or, in really simple terms, part equals part. All right, let's do a couple of examples. In number 3 here, it says, let E be a midpoint for DF. Draw a diagram and then solve X and the lengths of DE and DF. Okay, so I'm going to draw one line segment and label the points. E is a midpoint. So I already know that in the very middle I have E, and I can mark my segments congruent because I know that E is a midpoint. D and F are those endpoints. And then they gave me some information here. They gave me that DE is the length of 5x plus 8, and that EF is 10x minus 14. Now, because this is a midpoint and these two segments are congruent, these two expressions are also equal to each other. So part equals part. I'm going to write out an algebraic expression. 5x plus 8 equals 10x minus 14. Let's go ahead and get those x's on the same side of the equation. So I'm going to subtract 5x here and here. I want to get that x alone, so let's go ahead and add that 14 to both sides. (22 equals 5x. To get x alone, we're going to divide by 5 on both sides of the equation. And in this case, x equals 4.4. Now what I'm going to do with that information is I'm going to take that x and I'm going to plug it in to each expression. I'm going to plug it in here and I'm going to plug it in here. So for DE, I'm going to multiply 5 times 4.4 and then add that 8. And I end up with a length of 30. Now, if this part is 30, and I know that these two parts are congruent, then this part also has to be 30. And you could check that by plugging the x in here. So 10 times 4.4 minus 14 in my calculator tells me that the length of this side is also 30. The other question that they asked me for is the length of DF, which is the total here. So if I know that this is 30 and this is 30, then the total DF has to be 60. All right, next example. M is the midpoint of AC. Now look, it told me right there in the equation, or sorry, in the problem, that M is a midpoint. Given the following, find AC. So I'm going to draw a picture because I think it's a lot easier to visualize this if you have a drawing that you can go off of. So A and C are the endpoints, and we know that M is the midpoint, and these two segments are congruent. Now what they gave me was AM, so 5x minus 2, and MC, which has got to be this part over here, 3x plus 8. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and set up an equation. So 5x minus 2 equals 3x plus 8. Let's get those x's on one side. 2x minus 2 equals 8. Let's begin to get that variable alone. 2x equals 10. Divide that by 2. Oh, I'm writing off the page almost. X equals 5. Okay, now all they want to know this time is what is AC. AC, or the length of AC, is this whole thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this x and I'm going to plug it into this equation. So up here it would be 5 times 5 minus 2. So 25 minus 2 would give me 23. That's the length of AM. And then here, 3 times 5 plus 8. 3 times 5 is 15 plus 8. Oh, that is also 23. And that makes sense because we should have two congruent lengths. So to figure out what AC is, we're going to add 23 plus 23 and get 46. All right, time to do those practice problems.